Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi. Let me know if you can see me. I'm doing things a little bit differently today, so let me know if you can see me. Hi, Sadie. I think that's you. Hey, everyone. I'm going to be talking. Hey, how are you? Hi. I wanted to come on today. I am actually, I believe I'm live and I'm streaming to a bunch of places. So this is the first time I'm doing this. Yes, you can see me. Thank you. I'm actually going to be talking about self-preservation. That's our theme for the month. And so for those of you who don't know me, I am Omolara Uemadimo. I am a pediatrician, and then I'm also the founder of Melanin Medicine and Motherhood. Hey, V Davis, how are you? Let me just see who's in the chat. So literally we're streaming, I believe, we'll see, to my Facebook group. We're also streaming to, where else? To my Facebook page, Twitter, not yet LinkedIn, and Instagram. So we're doing all of those today. And the reason why is because I really wanted to talk about self-preservation. I think it's really important for us today. And I'm going to get this light down because it's like flashing everywhere. So let's see if I can do this. Okay, cool. All right. I wanted to talk about this particularly because it's been on my mind in a sense. A lot of times we've been going through a lot. Okay, as Black women, as physicians, as some of us as moms, we've been going through a lot. And honestly, there has been not a lot of attention paid to what we've been dealing with. I mean, if you take the racism, the trauma from of all of this onslaught of police brutality, if you take kind of the ongoing macroaggressions, if you take the issues around just in terms of just trying to survive and be a Black woman in academia, in medicine, in healthcare institutions, it's just a lot. And I think that July, like we're literally in the half, almost, we just started the second half of the year, and I'm like, we need some self-preservation work. And why I'm saying self-preservation and not self-care is honestly because of the fact that I believe that, so much of what is needed for us right now is the fact that we don't need to put a lot on ourselves. We need to literally be able to say, what is the thing that we can do to take care of ourselves? And I wanted to talk about three different things that we're going to talk about over this 3-part series that I'm going to be doing. So it's going to be about clarity, courage, and connection. Today we're going to talk about connection. But I did write some notes because I think the other piece is kind of why. Why am I even going into this? And I think the biggest thing around this is that, for many of us, specifically, I cater a lot of my coaching to Black women physicians exclusively, particularly because it's not a women physicians thing. It's not a Black women thing. It's this intersection of being a healer and having to provide for other people in that way, being a Black woman, and kind of the legacy that has been passed down to us that we have to serve almost to the detriment of ourselves and put ourselves last, and that kind of legacy, particularly because many of us are in homes that we are the breadwinner, homes that, have either been brought down by issues such as mass incarceration, single motherhood, other issues like that, where we find ourselves having to take the onslaught of that burden. And so I think what is going to be important for us is thinking about how do we protect ourselves and how do we ensure that there is something left when we're giving and giving and giving, and how do we create those boundaries? So actually yesterday I was doing coaching with an Empowered, which is my personal development incubator, and I was talking with the woman about know your no, and we were training on that. And know your no really refers to the fact that too often we aren't making space for ourselves. And really, a lot of times we aren't making space for ourselves because we don't know what our vision and what we're making space for. We're honestly just trying to get through the day. And I wanted to talk about kind of the three things that are going to be important for us to make sure that we're staying well, make sure that we're preserving ourselves, and making sure that we are able to leave a legacy that is not of being burnt out, frustrated, and confused, and upset, but a legacy of, I know for me, showing my daughters that I'm able to handle what life has for me professionally, but also able to say, this is what I want personally, and make that balance. So one thing that I wanted to talk about in particular was the fact that too often we are focusing a lot on professional development. And the reason why we focus a lot on professional in deference to, hi, Dr. Eula, in deference to personal development a lot of times is because of the fact that many times we have been told that the professional development, that piece of ourselves, will level us up, will put us up, give us some additional things that will help to make us, on par, per se, or help us to be competitive. Hi, Nikki D. And one of the things around this idea is the fact that we are told many times, either implicitly or explicitly, that we are not valuable. And so we inherently kind of consume that and say, okay, another degree, another certification, another fill in the blank, whatever you want to call it. And what we'll do with that is then ultimately we will start to, negate the personal development that needs to happen. And why is the personal development so important? The personal development actually allows for us to recognize the fact that many times we're living in this confined space thinking that this is all we have. And without the personal development, we don't actually start to envision what our lives could actually look like. We just envision what is in front of us. So something that we talk about a lot of times in my coaching is reactive planning instead of inventive planning. So reactive planning refers to the idea that it's almost like you are driving in a car and you're always looking in the rear view mirror. So you're using what you had, using what's available to you, what you can see, instead of kind of envisioning the fact that you can create a life that is bigger than what exists for you right now. And that's kind of the work that I think is so important and keeps us unfulfilled, stuck, and frustrated, because many times we're seeing life in this kind of bubble that tells us that, well, all we can do is, our only assets are, either practicing medicine or, just seeing patients, doing paperwork, and that we don't have any other skills, which is like crazy, right? So one of the things that I usually talk about is our zone of genius. And so if you've been following me for a long time, or if you have come into the Facebook group ever, I'm going to just show that as well for people who want to enter the Facebook group. It's about 1,200, I think. We're above 1,200 Black women physicians in that group. So it's an amazing space. And one of the things that we talk about is the fact that we are so busy doing everything that sometimes we even forget or don't even realize or cultivate what is our actual genius, what is the thing that we love to do. So I really wanted us to take some time, from work, which all of us are exhausted from, and say, what are the ways that we can hone in on personally developing so that success is not held to standards of patriarchy or what white people say, but success is really held to the idea that we have this opportunity for us to be as big as we imagine ourselves to be. We can envision what we want and then work backwards from that vision. And one of the things that I try to think about with self-preservation is making sure that we know that self-preservation has to do more with getting clear having the courage, and being connected. So today we're going to talk about connection, and then part 2, which is only going to be in the Facebook group, and part 3, which is only going to be in the Facebook group as well. But so come on into the Facebook group for the other three. But we're going to talk about actions of self-preservation, the first 2 actions, and then we're also going to talk about the first 2 mindset shifts that you can make. So the first thing that I also want to say is that Emily Nagoski is a great person. If you haven't read her book, Burnout, you should read it. And she talks about these 2 things, your stress response and your stressor. And oftentimes we are laser focused on our stressor, and then we are either minimally or not even recognizing our stress response. So what do we mean by that? So ultimately, if you think about it, right, I'm going to change this light. Sorry, it's bothering me. So ultimately, there we go. Ultimately, we have a few things, right? If we have a lion who is chasing us, okay. Hi, Posh Organization. Nice to see you. So stressor and stress response cycle. A lot of times we're focused on the stressor. So what does that mean? We have a lion. He's chasing us. The lion is our stressor. The lion is causing us stress. We usually have 3 different modes that we go into, which is fight. Not me, I will be running. Flight, that will be me. Or freeze, no. So we either do one of those 3 things. And when we do that, some of the things that are really important for us to think about are the fact that not only are we dealing with a stressor, but we also have this stress response where our cortisol is going up. We're like, oh my God, what's going on? Am I going to live? And let's say something happens. Let's say the lion somehow falls somewhere or something and dies on the way of trying to eat you, right? The stressor is gone, but you are still on 10. You are still like, oh my God, I can't believe what happened, right? And that's your stress response. The problem with that is that a lot of times many times never complete that stress response cycle, or say, okay, what is it that I can do to get myself back down? And so when we do that, what happens to us is that becomes kind of a chronic inflamed state, a chronic state where we're literally stressed all the time. And that elevated amount of inflammatory hormones and all of that cortisol actually causes wear and tear to our bodies. And so whether it's the lion, whether it's racism, whether it's the macroaggressions, they're not microaggressions, I think they're macroaggressions, whether it is trying to talk to our kids about police brutality that they've witnessed, whether it's all of those things, we stay in this up here level, and we often never recognize, even if the stressor is gone per se, we never recognize the fact that we need to bring that cycle into completion. So she talks a lot about that. And what I wanted to talk about were kind of the fact that in order to bring that stress response cycle into completion and hopefully reduce our potential damage to our bodies, honestly. And, I suffered autoimmune disease. I know many women who suffer with lupus and arthritis and heart disease and poor metabolism. And I really, cannot, of course, for every individual make the link, but I do worry that as African-American women, specifically professional African-American women, that the amount of stress that we have, not just from the stressor, but from the thank you, yep, Dr. Ula, from not just the stressor, but the amount of stress that we have from the stress response cycle not being completed is actually what is contributing to that prevalence that we have. Hey, Lola. And so one of the things that I really think is going to be extremely important is thinking about this closing our stress response cycle in 3 different ways. We're going to close it through connection, we're going to close it through clarity, and we're going to close it through courage. And so we're going to talk about connection today. And if you're interested to learn about what the actions are and the mindset shifts for clarity and for courage, then join me in the Facebook group. And that's at bit.ly, bit.ly/MMM group. Okay, so for connection, there are two actions that can really help us. So, one, what we need to be thinking about is how can we integrate a positive social interaction to counteract the trauma that happens, right? So, for example, if we use the lion example, one way that we can complete the stress response cycle is we can call somebody right in the woods and say, oh my God, you can never believe what happened. And remember that what that does is if that person is a positive person who you're talking with, that and that's a positive social interaction, what that does is that now allows for us to remember that the world is good. Right? So when you're dealing with a horrible interaction with in the workplace, right? When you're dealing with pain, when you're trying to navigate, being at home and kind of working and then also trying to homeschool and also the guilt from maybe not doing either the way that you wanted. What helps many times is that connection. And too often we're isolating ourselves and we're not identifying who that positive social interaction is. It doesn't have to be everybody. Not everybody needs to know our business. Hey, Pain Doc Africa. But we really need to be able to say, who is the go-to person that's going to help me close that stress response cycle so that ignorant person at work or that issue that I saw on TV or whatever that is, that I'm able to now close that. And so what I want you to think about is, one, how can I integrate having a positive social interaction in my day? How can I do that and make that a regular piece of my schedule so that then I'm not potentially having to work as in a reactive way, but I can work in a proactive way and saying, this is something that I'm going to carve out because it's really important for me. And it doesn't have to be a, hour-long talk. It literally can be a phone call. It literally can be, a wonderful conversation with your kids, but something that closes that stress response cycle that we often feel. What else? The second thing is affection. Okay. So too often, and I'm a heavy introvert. So I am not the most affectionate person. Anyone who knows me will let you know that quickly, that the way that I show love is by talking to you. So if I'm actually communicating with you, that means I love you very much. So in any case, I think one of the really important things about affection is the idea that, right, we all know that affection also has a physical response, a physiological response that can help counteract all of that stress response. And so really many times we're actually looking for that kind of affection as well to be able to help us bring down that stress response cycle. So either or, there has to be some element of connection that's going to be a part of how you navigate. So thank you, Ms. Yinks. Power of introverts. Exactly. We're wonderful. I mean, right? COVID was like our swan song. We were kind of like, we don't have to make excuses anymore. But it's going to be extremely, extremely important for us to remember connection. So maybe you can tell me in the chat, like, what are you doing to stay connected right now? Because that is supremely, supremely important. So let me know in the chat what you are doing to stay connected. Just like shout, put something in there and let me know, because these are going to be the things that like keep us staying well. These are the things that are going to keep us moving forward. And they're the things that will allow for us to navigate life a little bit better and easier without the pain and anger. The other thing that I think about with connection is the idea that many times, not only do you want to focus on the actions, but you also want to think about mindset. So one of the big mindset shifts that I like to think about is, how can I incorporate gratitude, right? And so a really interesting thing that I remember, it's in James Clear's Atomic Habits, that he talks about. It's a form of what we call positive reappraisal. So the idea is that when for those uncontrollable stressors, which are many, whether that be someone at the job, whether that be something that I just have to do, how can you actually protect yourself by positively reappraising that and saying, I have to, let's change I have to I get to. So I have to do paperwork. Not fun, but how, if you change that to I get to, what are the ways that you can actually navigate, that conversation a little bit better with yourself in terms of getting it done, automating it, and getting everything, the way that you want it to be. One of the other things that we talk about with positive reappraisal is the idea that a lot of times with the gratitude piece is finding what the opportunity is in the difficulty. And so we've done that all our lives as Black women, I know. And the issue is that we don't recognize that as like a skill or something additional. We almost recognize it as just something that we kind of just have to do. But if we actually actively like either create a gratitude journal or have gratitude time, one of the things that was funny was I incorporated gratitude time with my kids, and then they were doing it for a while and they were like, Mom, you never mentioned what you're grateful for. And then I realized, wow, okay, so I'm definitely teaching them, that once you get older, like gratitude is not, something that we do. It's only when you're little. And so we really, it's been a journey for me to be able to make sure that every night or every morning, I am trying to think about how to incorporate that. I actually just had a conversation with the fabulous Dr. Maisha Claiborne, and she talked about her gratitude journals, and she's been doing it for a long time. And she talked about the fact that what she'll do is do the gratitude journal in the morning, pretty early. And usually it's either after prayer, maybe it might be before prayer for her. And what that does is not only does it allow for her to say what she's grateful for from the day before, but it also, hi, Just Jet. Yes, hey. So what it also allows her to do is start to think about even the things that didn't happen yet. What do I want to be grateful for? So basically, you're almost kind of through the self-preservation process, you're almost forward thinking. What is it that I want to happen? I'm grateful that this day is going to be a successful day. I'm grateful that, I'm going to be able to be productive at work and these things. And it allows for you to not only envision things, but treat your vision as fact. So much so that you're already grateful for it. So that's one self-preservation mindset shift. And then the last self-preservation mindset shift is joy, and thinking about where can I find the little piece of joy, right? And why I say that is because it's almost important to identify that joy, because what's going to happen is that that's going to be the clue that that's the meaningful work. And when you can find that meaningful work, you know that that's where either your genius is or where you are thriving. And the goal for us is to think about how do we automate, delegate, or eliminate the things that aren't giving us joy, right? And set those boundaries so that we can maximize the time when we're in that joyful state, when we're in that meaningful work. So even if you're at work, one of the things that I try to think about is, where is the joy in that I can really grab onto and really, say, okay, what is the way, thinking about, as I think about my day, what is the way that I could actually maximize that, if that makes sense? So that is one of the things that I think is particularly important for you to think about. Now, once again, this is not it, right? We're also going to be talking about, and Ryan said Facebook and text check-ins in the Facebook group. So Ryan, you're right that definitely the Facebook group, not Facebook group, but definitely text. If you're looking for ways to have positive social interaction, texting is definitely helpful, but definitely there's a power in the voice and a power in hearing people. There's a power in seeing people. I know a lot of us are zoomed out, but if we can really try and doses and circumscribe it to be able to say, at this time period, this is when I'm going to do my positive social interaction. So The last thing that I want to mention, and so let me just recap. We've talked about the fact that self-care is definitely the shift for us is around self-preservation and not something that's a luxury, but something that is more of certain actions that we need to take and certain mindset shifts. And we talked about one and the three domains of practicing self-preservation for Black women, I believe, is connection, clarity, and courage. And for connection, which is what we're focusing today on, we have two actions that we can take advantage of that are going to be really important for helping us close our stress response cycle, preserve ourselves, and not only preserve ourselves in terms of self-preservation being something that benefits us, but I talk a lot about Ubuntu with my coaching clients, and Ubuntu is the idea that I am because we are. So really understanding that the collective is not well unless I am well, and because I have so much work that I want, so much impact that I want to do for the world, that means I have to be well. I have to have boundaries. I have to make sure that I am clear. And many of the people who know me or work with me know that has been a work in progress for all of us, I think, in general, of making sure that we don't confuse having boundaries as being selfish, instead of it being self-maintenance and having boundaries being able to propel us to do our best work and our most meaningful work. So positive social interaction is the first action you should think about incorporating in your day regularly, and some sort of affection, whether that's a hug from a child, whether that's a hug from a coworker. Those are really important things to think about. One of the other things that, other than actions, are mindset shifts. So we talked about gratitude and how can you incorporate gratitude, and we talked about joy. Where can you find the joy in your day at this moment? My phone is about to die. So where can you find the joy in this moment that allows for you to be able to do the work that you need to do, but also allows for you to see what is the meaningful work that I've identified. Hey, womb sister. How are you? So those are the things that I think are going to be extremely important. And then lastly, we just talked about self-care not being an individual thing, but as Black women, as people from the motherland, right? It's a collective thing. So self-care, making sure that we are well is making sure that our community is well, because our collective cannot be well unless we are. And we have a lot of work to do, as we've seen, but we have to know kind of what is the work that we are meant to do and start tapping into that. So some of the homework that I want you to go with today is, hi, Nuguya. Some of the homework that I want you to go with is specifically about what's going to be your wellness plan. So we talked about positive social interaction, we talked about affection, we talked about gratitude, and we talked about joy. So any of those things are really under the domain of connection, and really making sure that we're prioritizing connection as our self-preservation tactic. So let me know in the chat, let me know wherever, what are you choosing to be your self-preservation strategy? Who is it that you want to connect to? How is it that you want to make connections? We definitely have a connected group in our Facebook group, which is bit.ly/MMM group. If you want to talk about this more, definitely feel free. We can, in my bio, there's links to do discovery calls with me if you just want to talk through this a little bit, if there was an aha that came out of this. But it's just so important for us to make sure that we are tapping into being connected, because that way we're really going to get to our fullest self. So I hope this was helpful. These are our first 2 actions of 7. So if you want to join us for our following 5, can't do math. If you want to join us for our following 5, then come on into our Facebook group. The link is also in my bio. For those of you who are watching in the Facebook group, thank you. I'm trying to do this huge technological task of trying to stream in Instagram, Twitter, Facebook group and my Facebook page. And I think I did okay for today. So let me know how this was for you. Let me know what you took from it. And I am looking forward to seeing you guys. Those of you who are in the Facebook group, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. And for those of you who are not, we actually are going to be doing a little workshop July 20th and 21st. I'm going to be probably promoting that, and it's going to be a workshop about getting back into our purpose. I actually did a workshop recently, but this will be a mini one. And if you are interested, then look out for that. And definitely, if you think there are other Black women physicians who kind of just need that support, definitely follow me and continue to check in. All right. Hi, Ruth. Take care, everyone. Bye. Bye, everyone. Let's see if I can end this correctly.